What's up, everyone? Hope you had a great weekend and an absolutely solid weekend of footy. There's 2 weeks to go. Or actually, we're into our final week after this week of Supercoach. Well, obviously, a lot of footy to go in the finals, but we're getting into the head-to-head grand finals here. We're going to find out whether Timmy's won or Timmy hasn't. I am not in cashies myself, but I know a lot of you are. So hopefully, you've won your matchups and. Going to have a bit of a chat about that. But we're here as usual, back to back. He's come back. He's not Penrith Panther today. He's natural form himself, Mr. Tim Moody. How are you going, Timmy?
Yeah, very good. Hello to our viewers, especially our international viewers. We've seemed to have gathered a few international viewers, and we're loving it. So welcome aboard. What an interesting week. I think it had promised to be a really big scoring week. From my side, I felt a lot of my players had really good matchups, and for a lot of the time they haven't recently. So I was really looking forward to this week, but yeah, it didn't really work out for anyone really. I think that it seems like no one really scored less than 1,000, and not many people scored much more than 1,300. So it was a very small little bracket of scoring.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting week, and I suppose a lot of people would have thought this one, as you said, would be a week where you can kind of go the pod route and really make up ground. But it doesn't appear that even if you didn't go, it didn't Captain Hines, that you kind of made up that kind of ground you might have needed to. But still, I mean, besides the Panthers matchup, there weren't too many high scorers, which is obviously an interesting thing at this point of the year, especially coming off last week where you had the huge lopsided scores. So, I mean, very interesting week. Supercoach never ceases to amaze me, but it is what it is. So, in terms of your head-to-head matchups, Timmy, were you part of many grand finals? And if so, did you end up in the dub?
I only alive in the one grand final. I had 10 leagues going. 8 of them were cash leagues. 10 that I could view. I'm sure that I'm in a lot more the way other people have added me in, but the ones that I knew I was competing in, only one of them I made it through. It was in the original competition that I first ever started many, many years ago. I didn't start the competition, but the first one I ever joined. So I've been in this competition since 2016. I've won it most years. It's my bloody comp. I love it. I beat Jerkface. He was a strong contender, but I ran him down. So very happy with that.
Yeah.
How'd you go, mate? You no cashies, but overall you scored well.
Yeah, no, I scored about 1250, and I was part of one kind of home league. It's just a league with some mates. We don't put any money on it. So I managed to get up. Bragging rights, yeah. And so I managed to get up in that one. So I'll hold my hat to that one. It's a successful win for me there. So I did win that one. I was out of the Podmasters ones quite early, but you got to take your wins when they come. So so got that in and scored pretty well. And for me, I'm trying to make my rank at least a little bit respectful. So hopefully I can get up. We were talking earlier actually about par this week, and we just have no idea. Do we think it's you said it's going to be 1,100 or something around that.
I reckon probably 1,150. A par for a good sides, competitive sides, I think is about a par. Yeah, not par overall for the whole 140,000 people playing, but yeah.
No, yeah, it's going to be an interesting round. So lots of people. And I mean, the groups are fantastic because. And I love this about Supercoaches, regardless of what cashes you are, a lot of them go down to the head. A lot of them go down to the wire, I
think a lot of people would have been sweating on David Fafita in this last game of the round to chomp up a big score. He looked good to start with, and then they brought on Payne Haas's young brother, and seemed to take his spot for most of the second half, which was pretty disappointing. Lucky I just tied up, won my sort of head-to-head, but I reckon there'll be plenty of people that have just fallen short, needing just like one or two extra little somethings out of him.
Yeah, it's very interesting that whole game. I mean, the Titans are always interesting with the way they handle Fafita. I was kind of lucky in terms of I was sweating on the two West Tigers players I had in my side. You never really know how they're going to come out, but I had Adam Dwyer here and Joe Off and Gowie. Joe Off, I didn't really score that well, but Adam Dwyer here came out and does what he generally does and played fantastic. So that really tied me up my win. So it was more of a luxury to get Fafita's points, but yeah, always a very, very, very interesting kind of game. So just kick it off. Who was your VC, and was it one of the Penrith players? And were you considering losing at one point?
I vice captained kick out, and it was really stressful because I felt like my gut was telling me, no, you should be doing May. Everyone's sort of sniffing around May, and he's more likely to cross for 3 tries on that wing. And I just thought, I'll just go with Kikau. I don't have too much to lose except for this head-to-head, I guess. And I didn't end up using the loop. I don't think many people would have. I was intending to use Latrell as my captain because I assumed I would be behind in my head-to-head because I've been behind in most of my head-to-heads for the last 5 weeks. I've been doing that bad. But yeah, I sort of got to a point in my week prior to Hines playing, and it looked like I was, going to be about 100 points better off than my opponent. So I could see he was captaining Hines. So at the very last second, I just matched Hines with him so he couldn't then change it to Latrell or something. So, yeah, it didn't really matter which way I went. I just had to sort of block him for safety, I think. And it worked out okay.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's tough between head-to-head and overall. For me, I was looking at I VC'd Brian To'o. And, it was just on that cusp of kind of like 10, 20 more points. And in a week, I would consider it doing it. It was also the fact that Hines' matchup was so favourable. If say I had a captaincy option that wasn't against such a favourable matchup, I would have probably looped. But it's always tough when you hit that. And again, we go back to the scores of previous rounds where there's 140s, 150s being scored quite regularly. 110 or whatever he was on wasn't enough to kind of loop at that time. So, I mean, you look at it in hindsight and you say, well, Hines only scored 40. Also, he got upgraded to some 60 odd, but that upside of getting a captain would have really played into account. But anyway, very, very interesting game, and kind of that's the way that Supercoach operates. We've got a couple of comments here from some early viewers. Matt Carey says, played 2 public leagues, 2 grand finals, 2 losses. Look out, Mad Monday. Mate, at least you made it to the final of 2 of your leagues, too.
Enjoy your Mad Monday. Call in sick tomorrow, mate. Just tell your boss you're on your fantasy Mad Monday in the bedroom, just having a blinder.
And we've got the SSC podcast saying, evening, lads. Evening to the SSC podcast. We've got
the para.
Up the para. How good with their game on. And that's the first game we'll actually get into. We've also got Shilsey said, morning from Northern Ireland.
Love our international viewers.
More international viewers. I'm here in London, Shilsey, so early morning to you.
Look, Shilsey, I got Ramy in myself. It was my last purchase of the year, my last trade I used him for. I love that draw of the Sharkies having 4 really easy games. I think he was okay the week I brought him in, and then last week a little bit underwhelming, this week underwhelming. Very disappointing because it looks so promising. Hopefully we get something out of them in the last round. I think they're playing the Knights. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but I hope it is the Knights.
I think it is. Yeah.
Surely we'll get something from him. Yeah. Let's be patient.
Be patient. You'll get it in the final week. But at least it'll help get
but Talakai, that's before we're not even on this game, but Talakai is way more frustrating. Like we've been holding on for him to come back, and I was really excited. I thought, geez, Ikavalu did well last week in his spot, and surely Talakai is going to rip and tear, and it just didn't eventuate. I don't think it's him. I just think, maybe it is him. It's just the team aren't using him that well, I don't think, or maybe his threat has been, sort of minimized. Now everyone knows how to deal with him. I haven't really been paying attention to it, but he just doesn't seem like a threat anymore.
Well, it's kind of tough with Talakai. I think the Sharks are playing, good footy for the win, but I just don't think that they're using all the players and all the players they have in their side to their advantage. You look at the way they kind of earlier in the season, Talakai and Mulatalo did to Manly, and you kind of say, I know they were up
against... Do it again and again.
do it again. I was like, how is anyone gonna stop that kind of combo? They managed to get Talakai one-on-one with people, and he would just always just kind of make a move and bust through, or swing into to Ronaldo, and I just looked at him being like, I don't know how anyone's going to stop that combo. And then you look at Ramian on the other side, and you're like, well, you can't really, double team or pepper the left hand side with your defense. You kind of got to make sure you balance both sides because they've got both sides of their attack really firing, and it's just weird how they're winning games and they looked average this week, and then
they were really clunky. I mean, they had that Idol on the rookie on the wing. He made a few early mistakes, the poor bugger, which didn't really help the cause of Nico captainers and stuff. You just want things to go well for the side, and so he can do his thing. But it was a bit clunky. A lot of the time they looked disjointed, and I was thinking, I think they're a little bit off some of the other top sides that are competing for the big GF this year. I don't think the Sharks are quite as, lethal as, say, obviously your Panthers, but I think then like your Roosters, Melbourne Storm, even, Para to an extent, when they're on as well. So I think, Sharkies might struggle in the finals.
Yeah, and I mean, they shouldn't really be struggling too much because they're just absolutely loaded. So
they might go all right first game and probably play the Cowboys at home at PointsBet, and Cowboys don't really like playing away from Queensland, so it might work out for them, but I think Cowboys do look the better side, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the first game of the round, huh?
On to the first game
I'm just going to jibber-jabber about Talakai for the rest of the night otherwise.
No, it's good. We like the flow of these things. We have a structure, but it's all good to have a bit of jibber-jabber. Brings us on to the Triple SC podcast's favourite team, the mighty Parramatta Eels. First game of the week. Very interesting kind of dynamic, and that's why I love real foot. Looking at it from a Supercoach perspective, but also as a footy fan. Looking at the Broncos and their fight to be in the 8, how they've put a score on a number of people, and you would have thought they'd never slip out of the 8 at this point, but absolutely just dominated by a fantastic Eel side that has these performances in them, and no one's ever doubted their capabilities. It's just the fact that can they have these type of performance on a regular basis. So we had some amazing scores from the Eels perspective. Clint Gutherson with a 159. He looked, I don't know, but he looked like he had his hand in basically every single try. Looked absolutely fantastic. He's a relatively big pod, but he scored absolutely fantastic, and he's owned by 6% of teams. So I mean, he's the type of guy who probably separated the 1300s, 1400s from the pack. IPAPS. Your favorite guy, Tim, who unfortunately you couldn't get in for a number of weeks. He's basically like my Angus Crichton to your IPAPs. He scored 123. Again, just ridiculous player. I mean, the Tigers have got an absolute star of the future in him. Sean Lane again. Peter Johnson was saying Lane was absolutely fantastic. One of my boys of the season. Can't agree more. He looked absolutely fantastic, and as a former Manly player, I don't know why we let him go. Other players in the Eels, we had Wonga Blake with a 91, Mike Casilla with an 84, Dylan Brown, it didn't really do too much at all. Still comes out with a 78, and Madison with a 55. It's kind of your only real disappointment, save for Reed Marnie with the 32.
Reed Marnie, man, fucking hell.
Do you have to play him?
Single-handedly has probably ruined my season, I reckon. I started with him and it was just woeful. And then I just thought it'd be a great idea to get him back over the buys and then not be able to get Harry back. So it was, very painful. He plays pretty decent footy for a bloke who can't score Supercoach points. But, I was excited about this one. He had a previous high score of about 137 against the Broncos. And I thought they'd put on a score, and I thought maybe there's a little something for him. He'll set up a few tries close to the line, but not to be. But, won't be going there ever again, Reed Marnie. Even if he kills it at the Dogs, not going near it.
No, it's different. I mean, maybe he's taking more of a game management role, letting the halves kind of do their thing. But, I mean, last year it was kind of like he was the second part of that, like, the A2 to a Moses. And it really feels like Brown's taken over that role. Obviously, Brown's fantastic. But, Reed's not just going for things, whether it's kicks and goals or running at the line a bit more. As you said, his previous score against the Broncos was 134. and not even near that. And in a 50, and this is what we've always said for a couple of weeks about Reid Marnie, is like in these huge matchups, you just think he'd get something. He might not get 100, 120, but a 30 when your team puts on 53 points is kind of just shows you're probably not a key part of that side going forward. But it's a pod. You live and you learn. So from an Eels perspective, is there anyone? I don't want to. I obviously don't want to harp too much on about this. We talked about this last week, but is perhaps? He's going to be expensive next year. But it was the same thing we said last year to what we're probably going to say next year. Is he's too expensive to start with at the front row. After your experience with him and not being able to get him for a number of weeks, him coming in, are you going to rip the band-aid off?
Well, let's say this: if he does end up, holding up and sort of sticking to his contract with the Tigers, I probably won't start with him just because of the uncertainty of how he goes. He'll probably still kill it over there, but maybe not as well as with Para. So yeah, I'd probably hold off. But if he did do a backflip and he was with Para, I'd probably look to just get it done and just bring him in to start with. Yeah.
Yep. I think, I'm probably right with you on that one. It's just Tigers' uncertainty. And he's a guy who gets involved with attacking stats, but he also gets some fantastic balls from the halves there. So, I didn't start with him this year, and it's obviously a bit of a bugger. But I think next year maybe it will pay off. Going on to the Broncos, no real big scores there. Payne Haas with a 53. Again, we talked about it last week. I don't know whether he's probably a good price. We'll start with him, but he's not doing anything too special. Katoni Staggs with a 35. Do you have him and do you play Katoni?
Yeah, I did. I do have him, and this was the first time I haven't played him in a long time, which was nice. I sort of been sucked into playing him too many times. But he's another player, never again for me. Him and Reid Marnie.
Well,
yeah,
that's the way. On to the next game, which is a very much more positive game from your standpoint, Timmy. The Panthers absolutely smashing it, 46-12 against the Warriors. Your boy, the Viliami, with a 102, looked absolutely fantastic as usual. 3 other players scored tons. Taylor May with a 113, Sean O'Sullivan with a 110. Who, might I add, was someone that you and I were very hot on trading in if you need to trade in someone in the halfback, and with obviously comments on how it hadn't come to fruition just yet. But Sean O'Sullivan with a 110 a week like this, if you
did score last week. I think he got 33 last week, but for the large chunk of the last sort of, I think he's averaged okay for the last sort of 4-ish sort of weeks. I think bring him up.
Yeah.
He's had 55-37, which you don't really want that, but I think I don't know whether we were talking him up on this before he got the 71 or before he got the 70, but yeah, it's not too shabby. There hasn't been many great options. Obviously, Jerome Hughes killed it this week, but Sammy Walker probably maybe not. I didn't have a look at him. Tough one. I've been thinking about how hard it's going to be to try and work. Like you can't start probably with Nico and Cleary. Oh, maybe you could, but they're both probably going to be halfback exclusive. But it's going to be tough to split them.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and then you're talking about, Turbo, Teddy. There's going to be a lot of high, expensive players. If you want to start with Paps, if he's available, you never know. It's going to be bloody hard, but I think that's what I'm probably going to do is start with Nico and Cleary and kind of just that setup for halfback. There's just so much uncertainty with the position. There's no clear cut kind of. You could say DCE with Turbo back, but you just know that you're not going to hold him for a long part of the season. So, and you probably got bigger fish to fry than to trade out someone like DCE early on in the season. So we had Brian Toto with a 103, Stephen Cry with a 98, Isaiah with a 90, and Jerome Luai first game back with an 81. So he
made a big difference, huh? Easy side, easy matchup, but they just looked a lot better with him there.
And I'm actually really happy for him. I know without Cleary there, there's a responsibility that falls on his shoulders, and he, a lot of people have kind of said, he's just a product of Cleary, but He's really not. He looks fantastic and really made difference. And I actually liked when Cleary's out to watch Luai on that side. He takes on much more of the ball and really has kind of that freedom to do what he wants. And I think it's always good with an exciting player like Jerome. Brings us on to the only real negative here, just before, is Apslai Coruscant with a 42. Obviously was not playing.
Killing Reed Marnie though, isn't he?
I know, yeah, by a whole 13 points.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is what it is. Brings on to the Warriors.
He got spelled very early though, and Kenny came on for him, so he didn't have a great deal of game time as compared to what he normally would.
Yeah, which is kind of the reason I think he would have found if he played the full match, he would have been in and amongst the attacking stats, which is not something you can say for old mate Reed. Onto the Warriors. Tohu Harris with a 73. Eli Katoa with a 73. I mean, damn it, Eli, he's going to go to the Storm next year. We want him to be underpriced so we can get him into our team early, and these constant games of scoring tries is not helping us out. But he's playing well, and I think the Storm have got a absolute peach of a player in there. Reece Walsh with 65. Josh Curran with a 47. We've spoken about him, and maybe we'll might start with him next year because he'll be quite underpriced. Adam Fanua-Blake with a 43. Again, I just don't know about the Warriors. I don't think we need to speak anything more about the Warriors unless you've got someone you're willing to chat about.
Move on. Sorry, Bruce.
Sorry, Bruce. Sorry, Warriors fans. I'm sure you'll hopefully be better next year. Brings us on to a fascinating game. Very tightly contested game. Almost a bit of biffs there with JBH and Nars, and
what's his face? Victor Radley was bloody getting into it, like taking Nars on and grabbing him by the neck. And I reckon he's tough as Victor Radley. I wouldn't want to mess with him in any way, shape, or form. He got knocked out, unfortunately, because of his poor angle. He sort of attempted that tackle and just rocked him, and it was terrible image, just having him sort of sitting there shaking on the ground. But hopefully we'll get him back early into the finals. He should take a week or two off, I think, after something like that. But what a beast he is. He just doesn't back away, puts his body on the line like no one else, and much respect to him.
Yeah. And I mean, he's had a bit of a history with concussions, injuries, so let's just hope it's good for him. The Triple SC podcast is saying news just through, and this is something which we spoke about previously, just finishing off with the Panthers, is that the 13 Panthers players will be rested next week.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, there's going to be a bit of a... Because I've got To'o, May, and Tungo. So...
I don't think I'm going to be able to field 17 players. I've only got really 2 extra guys. I've got the 2 players I didn't play this week were Stags and one other guy, and I don't even know who that is. I can't even think of that. So now that 3 players, likely my 3 Penrith players are out, I'm struggling. This is why we save trades. Next year, Supercoach Experience listeners, we are going to save our trades like there is no tomorrow.
The thing is, I had one trade this week, and I thought, I'm just going to go big. Garrick was out. I was a bit pissed off with Manly, obviously, as a Manly fan. And I traded in Joe Tapine, thinking, in a heaps contested match, they're going to play him huge minutes, and he scored about a 53. So, and then you look at that, and then you go back and say, well, Garrick's probably back this week, and I need people in the centre wing. So
yeah, I'll take whatever we can get,
Funny how it works. And Peter says Appy might have sprained his ankle, so they rested him as precaution. So
that's right.
Might be out next week. So Storm and the Chooks. Jerome Hughes in a team that only scored 14 points with 105. So if you went him, absolutely fantastic. And that's kind of the story of my game, as I was considering going DC out to Jerome Hughes, or it was Garrick out to someone else, and thought, against the Chooks, not going to go Jerome Hughes, and obviously it didn't play out in my favour. So Kenny Bromwich with 72. Really some low scores from all your key Storm guns. So you got Harry Grant with a 54, Cam Munster with a 26. It's not really what you want in a game like that.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. In hindsight, we're looking at some of the starts, and I think a lot of people were just really worried about the Cowboys players like Drinkwater and Val, but I don't think enough sort of was really sort of put on the emphasis of that game, of the Roosters and the Storm game, and sitting some of those players. Obviously, you're not going to sit Harry Grant or anything like that, but yeah, I guess it'd be tough to really think about sitting Munster. In hindsight, prior to hindsight, you know what I mean, and not having that information. But yeah, there was always going to be a finalsy sort of game and a low scoring sort of game. So I guess they're the ones that maybe we can sort of try and have a little bit more confidence with next time, and suggest resting some of the bigger players and then playing some of those sort of weaker guys. Yeah, so my two guys that I've only got left, I've got Holmes and Staggs that I've got on the Pine, and they're the only two blokes that are going to be able to cover for me next week, which is a bit scary.
Oh well. I mean, I think everyone's going to be in the same boat. All the Penrith players are such highly owned players, and no one really has.
Thank God the head-to-head thing was brought back to round 24 to this week. That was a really good idea.
Which is always the way it's worked with I play American football quite religiously, and that's the way they've always kind of done it then, because of these whole situations. Like teams just rest half their squad, play their quarterbacks for like a quarter, and stuff. And it's just kind of, when you're dealing with head-to-head matchups, it's more of a luck in a grand final thing. Obviously, Supercoach is a bit of luck, but it's really luck when you start talking about players being rested and stuff and positions and items of that. So anyway, we're on the same boat. From a Roosters perspective, Sammy Walker actually really didn't score well. He scored 24. We had Daniel Tupou, which was 40 points. The key ones, Joey Manu, 85. Fantastic. I mean, he's going to be very tempting. I mean, he's going to be centre wing only next year. No, he might not be because of his 2 or 3 games at fullback. But regardless, he's going to be bloody expensive to start with. Takiaho with 62, Teddy with a 59, Joe Sawali with a 54. Not too many.
Sualihi, please. Sualihi. Don't be. How ignorant of you, Maxi. It's Joseph Sualihi.
Surely.
You're over there in England, bloody going to the bloody raves, mate. You got no idea what's going on over here now, mate. No, I'm just kidding, bro. No, I heard I think it was Brandy called him Suali, and then whoever was the commentator with him, I think it was like Warren Smith or someone like that, gave him a bit of a hard time over it. Like, I was like, fuck, give him a break.
It's like it's funny because like you see people still call Joseph Paulo. And it's tough to be angry at that when that's the way that commentators have called him for like 5 or 6 years.
It's hard to change.
No, it's all good. Joe Suali'i with a 54. And he's someone who a lot of people brought in, kind of as a pod maybe for around home. 54 is not really going to help you out too much. So it's kind of unfortunate there. Nat Butcher
take that against the Storm, though. I reckon you'd take that.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, the important thing is the Roosters got the win, which kind of solidifies them in the 8th and makes the Broncos and Raiders kind of the key ones for next week. Nat Butcher with the 41 came down to earth. We kind of know that's who he is. When he gets those attacking stats, he can score high, but his base really isn't there. I suppose anything more to talk about from a Chook's perspective? Sammy Walker not happy with, Daniel Tupou 40 with a try, I think.
Yeah, I just think you can't read too much into when you play the Storm or the Panthers. You just have to take the points you get. They just defend too well. So even though Storm lost the game, they only lost by, they only had the other team put 18 on them. So, yeah. Yeah, on to the next one.
On to the next one, which is regretfully why I probably wanted to pause on the other one. We've got Raiders 48, Manly 6. Just tough. But from a Raiders perspective, the other one I was tossing up with was, and I've been talking about it for a while with you, and you obviously know this one is the Hudson Young or Joe Tarpanay kind of debate. I just think you've had Hudson before this season. Absolutely fantastic player and has these kind of games in him. 111 for Hudson Young. Jordan Rapana with a 120. Foggy with 95. Seb Chris with 95. Jack White with a 64. Lots of really, really good scores here. I suppose I think Brandon might have put that post up that anonymous source has told him that Hudson Young's going to be playing 80 minutes on the edge, I think, for at least next year. Is he a smoky to start with at second row, or is, he's going to be too expensive, you think?
Yeah, probably too expensive, I'd say.
Yeah.
To start with, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got those scores in him. I suppose we just don't know.
If you're going to start with one or two other guns in that position, you probably find some other guys that are a bit more appealing, I reckon. But yeah, he's definitely an option.
Yeah, a massive pot option. Brings us on to the Sea Eagles. We had, Sir Brad, Lee Parker, one of the best players in the league for sure. I love him. With 65, Ethan Bullymore with 58. Ethan Bullymore of start of the season fame with a 58 there. Scored well with a try. Josh Alloway with 55, and not really much elsewhere. Ola Kawada with a 34 and Cherry Evans with a 34. And then Josh Schuster with an 11. I just spoke about
Cherry Evans has been a real failure for people who got on him, Like, he was one that people were real keen on, and I guess it's not so much just put down to him, but just put down to the way Manly have gone ever since, the Pride jersey round. So, a bit awkward.
Yeah, really awkward, and especially, I don't know about a lot of people, but I traded him in instead of Latrell. So, it's obviously making him more annoying than to have, DC scores stinking up than Cherry Evans, than Latrell. But I mean, he's dipped in price a lot. Cherry Evans, $473K.
I think Cherry Evans is just playing Cleary into a Aussie jersey.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. Is from and that's why I was kind of keen from a DC perspective. After Origin, there was people who were saying, like, how can you not play DCE after what he's done at representative level? And I really thought, hang on, he's going to make a real point of this. I think that the chances are so slim of him taking over the gig from Cleary. But if there was any time he could do it, it's probably now. So to see him just really not come into play is quite disappointing. Again, we spoke about Schuster. The Triple SC podcast says Schuster an option next year if he plays another 300K. We spoke about this previously, Triple SC, but both Tim and I are saying, he's going to be under 300K, and he's likely going to be one you're going to have to start with if he starts at 6. But let's
be frustrating. He can be annoying to watch sometimes, but he's also very exciting to watch. And yeah, I think it'll take a little bit to he'll be a very different 5'8" full time than any other 5'8". He'll be doing his own little thing, but yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I mean, you keep an eye on what happens with Manly. I think there's a bit of tension between him and Manly organisation about pay and items of that sort, and obviously Manly's a bit irritated, obviously, by letting Foran go to bring Schuster in at 6 and Schuster's form recently. So just have a look at that. Brings on to our next game, one which we thought would be like a 50-0 scoreline. It was a very tough game to watch, especially as a Nico Hines captain, or it was a Mulatalo owner. You thought he probably could go for more than 2 tries, or a Ramian owner. Sharks 16, Bulldogs 0. We spoke about it previously, Timmy. Britton Nakora with a 101.
Yeah, that's why I've got a bit of a disgruntled face at the moment. I was so close between Ramian and Nakora as my last trade, and yeah, that would have been really nice to have gone Nakora instead of Ramian.
Yeah, I mean, he runs a fantastic line. That try scored when he was.
I think he's good for easy matchups. I've never been keen on him for Supercoach that much in the past. Like, I think people were pretty hot on him pre-season because he was looking good in a lot of the, I think maybe the trials or maybe in some other sort of international footy from memory. But yeah, he does seem matchup sort of the guy you got to play on matchup. But when he's got a good matchup, seems to find those tries.
Yeah, and I remember his price. I think his price might have dipped quite a bit earlier on in the season, which made him quite of a
low 400s. Yeah, I could have picked him up for cheap as, man. Like, it was like when I was picking him up, it was going to be about 470, and I just picked Rami up for more because it didn't really matter about price. It was just which one I wanted to go. It's my last trade, but yeah,
very interesting. Well, I mean, if you win him, his last 4 scores are very good: 76 against Dragons, 79 against Tigers, 71 against Manly, and now the 101 against Bulldogs. So you can't be too upset with that. Other players from the Sharks who scored well: Ronaldo Mulatalo with a 78. Again, for a guy who scores a double, but that's Ronaldo Militalo. We know that's who he is, but good to see him at least score some decently. I said I was out on him last week, and I might have benched him, but I didn't really have the bollocks to do that, and I'm glad that I played him for a 78. McInnes with a 70. Nico Hines with 66. He updated significantly. I don't know where all these updates are coming from Nico. I didn't see him do much.
We'll take him, man.
But yeah, especially when you captain him, you'll take him. Talakai with a 54. And your mates, did Jesse Ramey even play?
All the way down the bottom, mate. 33.
33. I was about to say. I thought I saw him out there. 33. It's bummer. For a player who's got so much upside. Not good at all.
Another one I'm probably not going to go near either. I had him last year at the back end of the year to sort of help me sort of secure my win, and he probably got in the way more than he helped. He just didn't score well, and he often looks decent on paper because he scores usually at pretty average. You're like, oh, geez, he scores 60 pretty consistently, but if he doesn't score 60, he seems like he gets those 30s occasionally. He doesn't have much great upside. I think there was one or two games he scored tons this year, and they'll back to back. In 17 and 18, he scored 133 and 99. So not too shabby, but the rest of the year is pretty average.
Not fantastic, and especially for a guy that we've spoken about previously in this episode. Can kind of create a try himself. You'd think when Sharks' attacks kind of start feeling a little bit, he'd be the one who really would pick up the slack. Considering a lot of the other players rely on those set plays, your Militalos, the pass from Hines out the back. Ramey is a guy that can really create it himself. So, a bit disappointing, but oh well, he's a pod, and you kind of just make these picks, and they can always turn out for you fantastically. Bulldogs 0 points. Braden Burns. I really like him just because he's base stats. He's one of those centers who just busts tackles, offloads. He's very similar to kind of Carraz. When Bulldogs get a little bit better next year, I really, really hope I can see some good scores from them and get them into our side.
Feel the burn, huh?
Well, yeah, they're just really exciting plays, and I like having. I've always been kind of a sucker in my center wings for those center wings. Get just really good base, look exciting, busting tackles, and only need maybe one try to get up into the 90s or 100s. And so similar to, Talakai's base previously was getting a bit up there, but I just really, really like that those sorts of plays, and it's good to have a safety blanket there. If you're looking at someone like a Braden Burns, they can score 55 in a game where they score 0 points. And that's 40 issues around his floor. It's just a great player and safety to have in your center wings. And the Carraz, 28 for Carraz, keeping his price low because he might be one that I'm looking at as juicy, and we spoke about it last week. He might be one we either start with or bring in early, depending on how the Bulldogs side matches up with obviously with Kickout coming across and Reid Marnie. He's a talent, and we might eventually get there and start with him. Next match, we've got the Rabbitohs and the Cowboys. Do you want to take this one on with the high scores there, Timmy?
Yeah, so we've got on the Bunny side, we've got Colin Matangi repaying the faithful owners with a big 86. He looks to have been a little bit more consistent than that Olakawatu. I think a lot of people sort of tossing up between those sort of two options. So he's paid off for owners. Latrell Mitchell only a 76. Seems like we would have liked more. I was expecting him to go closer to a ton, even against the Cowboys, who are a great defensive side, but just thought he'd step up a little bit more in this one. Cam Murray, 73, very consistent. Let's get through to the relevant players. Alex Johnson only a 51, but you'll take that. Sort of middle of required week. Was that a double?
I think it was a double. Maybe it was only the one. But
no, just the one. But yeah, that's not too shabby. You'll take that. What else have we got? We've got Jairo 49 in some sides, Cody Walker 41, Campbell Grain 32, and that's about it for the Bunnies. Then over on the Cowboys side, it was pretty underwhelming when the top scorer for their sides put 53 points on the board in Drinkwater. So I was stuck with playing either Drinkwater or Holmes. Holmes scored more in the pre-dates, and then updating Drinkwater snipped him, so I'm pretty happy with that. Was only about an extra 12 points that it got me, but I'll take those. Robson, 49. He's been a pretty good option for people this year. 49 seems like one of his lower scores, so you'll take that. Nanai, 49, not too bad considering he didn't score. Lolo, 49, a bit underwhelming for Lolo, just in general. I thought he's been scoring pretty poorly lately, around those sort of 40 scores. I thought in a big matchup, we might get a bit more out of him, and it didn't really turn out that way, which is a bit unfortunate. What else we got? Holmes, 41, not great, but I guess that was always going to be when it's a bit of a finals field footy game. Do you have many players in this game one?
No. I only had Cody Walker, and I didn't play him this week, which is a good decision in hindsight. I think they had Cody Walker scored good against a tough matchup last week, but I just thought there was a try in that, and I don't know whether I'm going to bank on that one. That was really Latrell creating something out of nothing. Cowboys were the best defense in the league, so it was a good kind of call for me to do that. I suppose the other one I wanted to talk about was Ruben Cotter. I remember I spoke to you previously about him being a pod for the round home, and you kind of talked me off. Or talked a lot of the viewers off, going him coming back from injury. He scored a 40, which kind of obviously makes your point right. But I mean, for next year, if he was someone which we might start with, it keeps his price low. But I mean, great call on your part, because he was someone I was looking at after. I think he's scored 70-ish, and I just thought he was a good pod for the run home with everyone kind of trading him out after his injury.
I wonder what duels he's going to get next year. Is he going to get hooker front row, or is he going to get hooker? He played a lot in the front row.
Do you reckon he gets? Would he get second row, front row?
Yeah, it's weird. He should take hooker off him. He hasn't really played at hooker, has he? Maybe front row, second row. Yeah.
No, but I mean, again, dual options are few and far between, often in the second row, front row, contrary to seasons past. So he might be one you just kind of bring in. I think the thing that concerns me a little bit is in a game which meant a lot to the Cowboys. 40 isn't what you expect. I mean, you expect in these matchups, the tough matchups, that he's the safest as you can come. He gets 60, 65 in base at least, and to see that score from him is not great. Maybe it's a case if they just thought, hang on, we've kind of locked up the finals, let's just play him a little bit less. I mean, so similar to like the Alolo argument before, you'd think that they'd just play a lot of minutes in these types of matchups.
It was a gritty game, so I guess it's hard to sort of capitalise and get those super coach scoring points as well.
Yeah.
I guess we move on to the next one. We've got Tigers and the Drags.
Fantastic. I'll do this one. You can bring it home with the final matchup, Timmy. So the Tigers and Dragons, I mean, it was an exciting matchup for something which I didn't think was going to be too much of an exciting game. Dragons 24, Tigers 22. The top scorer was, I believe this guy was on debut. No, he wasn't. No,
he's played 4 games, but it felt like he was on debut. I didn't even recognise his face. I'm like, who's this bloke? But I've recognised his name, Fairbairn, or whatever his name is. It Fairbairn or Fairbairn? Good on him. He's a late bloomer. I think they said he's 27 or something like that. Seems like a really good egg. He sort of had a good attitude towards their loss last week, and just sort of said, man, footy's not everything, which is a bit of a weird thing, I guess, for a debut, or not a debut player, but a fresh guy to sort of say, you think you'd want to be really impressive, but sort of just took a, more positive route. And look, we paid him off this week. He had 2 tries, and good to see him go around.
Yeah, no, it's good. And he's to see what it meant to him to score those couple of tries is always fantastic. The passion he has. Hopefully he used to be a great player in the league, because we love those sorts of players. So he scored 102. Adam Dwyer here, which was one that I've brought in as a kind of bit of a pod with a 94. I was really happy with what he did today. He could have had more points than that, but obviously involved in everything the Tigers do. And
nice bounce back from last week from him too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at him, and I just love watching him. Yes, he's a hog, but He's in and around everything the Tigers do, and I think with IPAPs and obviously a couple more recruits coming over there next year, he might be someone I might start with, depending on price there at the 5'8" position.
Disappointing the Tigers couldn't get this one done though. Like they pretty much had this game wrapped up, and to have lost it, it was just real disappointing for their fans. Yeah. On to next year, huh?
Yeah, on to next year. I mean, it's a bit upsetting, but I mean, they've had a positive enough performance this game to kind of warrant that they got the fans got something to look forward to at least. And some of the tries they scored today and the plays they had were really clean, really fantastic, and I suppose that's kind of what you want to see, some signs of positivity. Jock Mann's try was fantastic. He scored a 74. I spoke about Joe Offengow with 52. Not really what you want to see from him. I think his minutes have kind of dipped over the last couple of weeks, which I'm a bit skeptical about as bringing him in as a kind of safe option. Fanua Pole with a 35. Kapoa with an 18, Naden with a 13. Nothing really going on there. From a Dragons perspective, Lomax rises up again with an 87. When he's on his game,
a great game. Yeah,
looks so good. I mean, 700k is a lot to pay for a centre, but he has those games where you just like, if he can consistently put that forward, and the Dragons have a good team around him, he could easily be a top 2 centre in the league. Just looks fantastic. Moga with a 86, could see him scoring well again after his hat trick, I think a couple of weeks back, maybe last week. Jaden Sewer with an 85. I mean, yeah, not too much going on here. I suppose Amone with a 13. I don't know whether Mikey played him or whether Mikey has him, but I remember he brought him into his side as a massive pod. So
what's crazy in this game though, if you look at like pretty much from Jack Bird down on the Dragons side, like Jack Bird scored 34 points, and then there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that scored less than Jack Bird in a team that won and also have scored 24 points. Like there's obviously, that's crazy.
And look at the player on the bottom, Timmy.
Who is he? Benny Hunt. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was fascinated about.
Wow, because he was a decent run home option playing for sort of what do you call it, the Daily M, and wow, I didn't really pay too much attention to his game. I did notice he looked very frustrated by his teammates at a lot of times, but I didn't really pay too much attention to his game as much. There you go.
But especially after the contract type stuff too that's going on about him, being lowballed with a 700k as an owner. If you were an owner, you'd be thinking, he's going to come out and really prove it to them that that's a ridiculous offer. And I think it is a bit of a ridiculous offer. But to have a game like that, I mean, they won, yes, and he had a lot of great touches and obviously intangibles, but not in and amongst it like we think. Brings us on to our last game.
There could have been people that captained Ben Hunt. There probably is. Like, he's playing the Tigers. If you brought him in, you might be looking at it going, I'm just going to go a bit different than Nico this week. I'll go Ben Hunt. How much would that kill you? If I had him, I would have considered it. So, yeah, that's yuck.
I mean, I don't know.
Last game's around.
Not in the top 10 captains. Nah,
of course not. Just wouldn't be that could probably own. But I guess we're moving on now. Let's go to the Titans and the I'm looking at the picture. The Knights. I'm sitting there looking at it going, they both look like Titans. Yeah, they're kind of similar. They're kind of similar. It's late in the night and they both kind of look similar. So we got Brimson had a blinder. He's been a popular sort of option for people to bring in late as a pod. So people who have brought him in have got paid off with that. He's looking great. I think the Titans are probably going to go a little bit better next year if they can have, if they can keep most of their guys on the field. Have Brimson at 5'8", have Foran come over and play in the halves, and then he's looking good. Jaden Campbell. I've never been a big fan of him. I thought he's just too gangly, and I just haven't really thought he's been that exciting. But some of the stuff he did, like one of the plays he made today, getting the ball out of his own in goal line was just, he looked like Spider-Man. He did this slide thing, and then his body was out of control. I don't know what's going on. He's a gun, though. I'm all for him now. So The Titans should not be a bottom 4 side, I don't think, with like especially when you've got Tino in that side, you've got Fermor and Fafita, who I just think look like almost clones of each other in body shape and stuff. And yeah, I really like the way they play side by side. And I think that he's a really good option going forward if the Titans are playing well. What's his face? Fermor. Like his lines are great, man. He probably runs better lines than anyone.
Yeah. And I mean, we spoke about it previously last week about whether he keeps center wing. We don't think he will. But if for whatever reason he does, which is very unlikely, he probably is the first center picked in my side next year. So just fantastic. And as I said, he's been the real surprise of the season, and it might be a candidate for if we do an awards kind of show roundup next week about surprise of the season. Both
most improved, encouragement award, something like that.
Yeah.
Also, we've got here not too many super coach relevant players. Obviously, there's Jojo Fafita. Didn't really get the opportunity to have that great of a super coach scoring game, but I think he played pretty decent out in the centres, considering he's normally been on the wing there. Khaleesi Haas, he looks fun. I'm excited to have him sort of running about. Wasn't enjoyable to have him come on the field and take valuable Fafita game minutes, though. That was very frustrating, but it is what it is. Over onto the other side, we've got Gay Guy, who, was playing pretty terribly there for a lot of it, but then sort of made a few good attacking plays, managed to score 118 points. Dom Young, 80 points, and Edric Lee, only at 39, both of them scoring for their sides. Jaden Bailey scoring pretty well, 67. Obviously not many Supercoach relevant players left here, so let's wrap that game up.
Yep. I mean, the only other player I was thinking about is I spoke last week and we both talked about him, about Greg Marju, and about he was going to use my final trade on him. So it was between it was going to be Garrick to Marju or to Joey Tarpanay through Jules, or DCE to Jerome Hughes. And I mean, Marju with 76 does what he does. I mean, I just want him to start consistently because there'll be someone in my side. He's so exciting to watch and makes the Titans games very interesting. So bit of love for him in that one there. Or without him. Yep. Which finishes off the roundup. It's got a couple of questions come in, which we'll finish off the show with. And then we'll kind of jet off. So we have a statement from Shieldsy saying Souths haven't forgotten about Suali'i next week. Will be interesting. Yeah. Well, what a matchup that will be next week. But I think because they're both locked into the 8 absolutely now, aren't they? Because they won this week. So it's
what happened. I've got you ringing me a bell. The penny hasn't dropped though. What did Suali'i do to South? What did he do to him? Was there?
He was a junior there. He was signed up there. Obviously playing a bit of junior footy there, and obviously had a decision to go to either rugby union or to league. And I think he knocked back. The South didn't want to give him the huge contract yet. He took the money to go to the Chooks. And obviously it's a huge thing when you're a Souths fan because you let Adam Reynolds go and it's kind of, yes, the Souths fantastic, but they probably are a top 2 side if they have Adam Reynolds over Lachlan Ilias this year. So someone have that with the same kind of thing happen with Suali'i. So going to be interesting.
Yeah, it will be a cracker of a game, that one. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we had the Triple SC podcast. Said, what do you think Parry is week, lad? Sitting 417th, scored a crappy 1139. I think I see Brett Arrows this week. Yeah, we were saying before, Timmy, that you think it's 1150. So you think probably Triple SC podcast.
I'm sitting 462, and I scored. What did I score? 12. I reckon we might be sitting pretty close to each other by tomorrow 10 a.m., mate. Let's have a look at that. We'll see what's going on. We might be like doink doink or doink doink. Yeah, I reckon par this round is about your score, about 1140-ish, 1150-ish. I think maybe it's 1100 flat. I don't know. I'm not the maths guy, but yeah, I think it's a solid score.
No, I think it's around that. I think you'll be fine, and well done, Triple SC on a great great season to finish around. You'll finish probably around the top 500, hopefully, and that's absolutely fantastic stuff that I dream of. And last question from me, he said, Captain Valentine Holmes next week will Panthers out. Interesting. I assume Cowboys have something to play for in terms of positioning, so it's a big balls move, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, I'd do it for sure. If the Penrith are resting that many players out there, happy to take a loss. I mean, the young boys that come through will probably play with a fair bit of passion and pride, but it's going to be very hard for them to compete with a full strength Cowboys. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Val or Drinky? I'd actually be tempted with that if you got Drinky to captain him because he's got the huge upside. Val's got the hundreds in him, yeah, but Drinky's got the 150s in him.
Yeah, I think if they score a lot of points, though, you might just get, like you say, they pump us, you could get 30 easy points in goal kicks, and if Val scores one, that, you know what I mean? Like it might be a good one. Either way, it'd be fine, but
yeah,
you might only have Val.
I don't like. I know the Panthers got people out, and they might win, but I don't think regardless of having 13 players out, I don't think they're going to get pumped by like 40. I think they might get beaten by like 16, 20. But it doesn't seem to be in Penrith's kind of.
It'll be interesting to see what 13 they rest, but I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah,
but it'd be good to see some of the younger boys get a go.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I'm glad Clear is kind of doing that. It's great as a minor premiers to kind of finish it off with a game there if you haven't been given a shot yet. Last comment from Jake says, FYI, it's your pick in the NFL draft. We're doing a draft at the moment, Jakey and I and a bunch of other people, and it's one of those long ones where there's no timer. You're not doing it at a set date. You kind of you have unlimited amount to do your picks, and I think it's taken about 4 or 5 days, this draft.
So no one else can make a pick until you make your pick?
Yeah.
That's funny as.
So everyone's messaging everyone. And Jake's been and everyone else in the league's been very patient with me because while let's stay over there, so whilst stay over there, I'm sleeping. So you have 11 hours.
Or raving. Either that or he's at the bloody raves. Maxi loves it. He's like,
Love a good rave. On that note, we'll finish it off. One more episode next week, Timmy. Man, I don't know what I'm going to do on Sunday mornings. Not talking to you, your legend. But best of luck for the final round, and we'll see you next week hopefully for a big awards wrap up to another fantastic season for Supercoach.
Yeah, the boys.
All right, take care, guys.